Hi, I'm George Pearson, and I'm going to show you how to collect honey and honeycomb so that you can set up a nice flower garden and use that to collect all the honey that you need and honeycomb that you need to build things like honeycomb blocks and honey blocks. Okay, now if you like this video, make sure you hit that like button and of course share. Also, don't forget to subscribe. I do videos every single week on Minecraft. And take a look at my other training as well. I do a lot of videos also on Photoshop, Photoshop Elements, and sometimes CorelDRAW. Okay, let's get to it. Making honey blocks and honeycomb blocks is a great way to add a lot of additional elements here into Minecraft, your Minecraft game. But there are a few things that you have to be able to do this. You need to be able to collect a lot of honey and to collect a lot of honeycomb. Now the border pattern that I'm standing on, that kind of orangish stuff there, that's the honeycomb block. And then off in the background back there you can see some honey blocks as well, which have a lot of interesting properties, but they take a lot of honey and a lot of honeycomb to actually construct these things. So let's take a look at and see what you can do to gather all of that honey. Now the main problem with gathering honey is that it's hard to find. Now if you walk over here, in the background you can see back there I have a tree. Let's just switch my view here. Now off in the distance back there you can see a bee nest just kind of stuck on that tree. Let's just walk up to that. They'll look like this. There'll be different spots on the tree, but they're fairly easy to find once you know what to look for, but they're not that frequent. About 5% of the time you'll find a bee nest like this, which means if you have 100 trees, on 5 of those trees you should find a bee nest on average. So they're a little bit scarce, which makes it hard to collect a lot of honey that way. So what you need to do is to set up a way to have a lot of bees hanging around, and you can then collect a lot of honey. And that's what we have set up right here. I have a basic flower garden right there, and then right back here I have a beehive set up, and this one bee here is taking over that beehive and he is filling it up with honey. As you can see right in there, this one is full. That's that kind of yellowish orangey color right in there, and it's also dripping. When they're full, they're dripping. Now I like to put mine onto these scaffoldings. I just think it looks nice. It looks pretty natural that way. Okay, let's now see what we need to do all this stuff. So the first thing you'll need to do is just to gather a few materials together. Now the first thing we need to do is we need to set up a campfire. There are two ways of safely gathering honey or honeycomb, and that's either to put a campfire underneath or to be holding a flower. And I normally hold my flower in my left hand. Let's take a look at both ways. First off, we're going to make a campfire here. I'll craft a campfire. Let's just get that out of the way and that out of the way. For the campfire, you're going to need some sticks. There we are. Going to need some coal right here. And you'll need some logs as well. I don't have any logs right here, so I'm going to just grab some logs. There's a dark oak log. How about that one? There's a standard spruce log. That works out pretty good. Now I need just a few of these. I'll grab 3 spruce logs. Okay, we can now craft all of these here on our crafting table. The basic setup here is to put a stick on top and a stick here and here. And take a coal in the middle. And then take 3 logs across the bottom. And that gives you your campfire right there. So it's 3 sticks, coal in the middle, and 3 logs. And grab your campfire. Now that we have that, we can smoke out a bee nest. Makes it easier to collect the honey. Other way is just to hold some flowers. That's the first thing that I want to have here just in case. Okay, let's go back again and get rid of some stuff here. I no longer need that or that. We also need to have glass bottles to hold the honey in. Have one right there. So to make a glass bottle, just grab our glass and we'll go back here to the crafting table. And this is just 3 of these, just like that. Just 3 glass cubes in here. And that gives you 3 glass bottles. There we go. That's pretty straightforward and pretty easy. Now this is for collecting honey. If you want to collect honeycomb, and this is important because you'll need honeycomb to build your beehives. And that's what we'll be placing inside of our flower garden. So for the honeycomb, we're going to need some shears. Let's just grab some iron ingots, just a couple iron ingots like that. Just 2 of those right there, and there's your shears. And you use the shears to get the honeycomb. Okay, now we're all set. Now, the last thing we'll do to get this set up is to set up scaffolding. And for the scaffolding, we'll need some bamboo and some string. So let me just go back here to my basic supplies. Have some bamboo right here, and we have some string right there. I'm going to need a bunch of these bamboos. Take 6 bamboos for this. 5 and 6, and 1 string, and that's fine. Okay, back to our crafting table. Now for this, put your string in the top center right there, and then put your bamboos down the 2 sides. And that gives you 6 scaffolding. And that's just a place to put the beehive on top of. Okay, that's all set. So now over here, you'll want to set up a lot of flowers. You can do it like this, real kind of standard flower garden arrangement, or you can do it as I did way over here. I just did a whole bunch of flowers just randomly around. There you go, just a lot of flowers in random. Either way works fine, doesn't really matter. But we'll use our standard one over here, our kind of formalized setup. And then let's just put down a scaffolding right there to put our beehive on. Okay, that's all ready and set to go. So the last thing we need to do now is just to collect, and we'll do that. First, we need to get a flower in your hand. Now notice you have a flower in your hand, the bees come over too. There he's just kind of hanging around right there, right above us. They like flowers. I'm going to use the F key and transfer that to my left hand. That gives me my right hand clean. That way, once we find a bee nest that has honey in it, we can then gather that with the glass bottle. Show you over here, take a fast walk right over here. And you can see it down there in the distance. There's a bee nest in the tree, and I have a campfire underneath that tree, and that's smoking that bee nest. And that's also a safe way to gather honey or honeycomb. Okay, now over here, you can tell if a bee nest or a beehive is full of honey because the windows here go yellow like that. You can then right click on that, and that will give you that bottle full of honey. You can see right down there in my inventory, there's the honey bottle. Notice you only get that 1 bottle of honey at a time. So it's kind of a slow process to start off with. And again, that's why you want to get this set up in a bit more organized manner. Okay, the next thing is to get honeycomb. Now honeycomb is important because you use honeycomb to build the beehives. So for honeycomb, it's the same thing as get your shears right there and right click, and there's some honeycomb up on top. Okay, now we have a lot of bees following us. I'm just going to drop that flower there. And once you let go of the flower, the bees kind of leave you alone again. So there we go. We'll use that trick to bring our bees over once we have this all set up. So we have our honeycomb, and let's go back over here to the crafting table. There we go. Now to craft a beehive, what we need is some planks. I have some right here. Just put a row of planks. There we go. It's your top of your beehive in there. We then need to have some honeycomb right across the middle like that. And then we'll finish this off with some more planks across the bottom. And that gives you 1 beehive. So it's planks, and then honeycomb, and then planks right there. And there's your beehive. Once we have our beehive, we can now go over here. And let's just put the beehive right there, right on top of that scaffolding. So I have a nice little beehive and some scaffolding. And when you get some bees over here, they'll eventually find this, of course, and they'll find all these flowers, and they'll hang around these flowers, and they'll use the close beehive right there. So to make this successful, you want to have a lot of these beehives and a lot of flowers, and then you also want to have a lot of bees. Now get bees over here. What we'll do is we'll grab a flower. Let me just move that flower over into my left hand. Let's grab another flower. Let's have a flower in each hand. And let's go over to our bees. So when you find some bees and you're all set to use the bees, just do this trick here, and if you have flowers in your hands, the bees are going to follow you. So just walk over here, and they'll stay pretty close. You can see they're just all following along right there. And just bring them over into your flowers. There we go. Just checking them. Don't go too fast, or you will lose them. Just come into the flowers in here. Okay, once you have your bees into your flowers, you can then let go of the flowers. Let's just transfer that over and let go of that. Once you let go of the flowers, the bees will leave you alone, but they're going to stay right here because they have the flowers. And they'll go ahead, they'll do their thing, and they will go into that beehive and deposit honey, and you can then make more beehives and so forth. So there you go. That's the basics behind it. It's not that difficult to do. It just takes a little bit of setting up, and as you begin to build more beehives, this will go faster, you get more bees. Bees in the wild will also find these eventually, but you'll want to begin gathering bees just like you would gather any other mob creature and bring them back to your home, and then hopefully they'll begin to use these beehives. Now, they're using one of mine, they're not using the second one yet, but they will eventually, and you can then use that as your new source for honey. So pretty straightforward, just takes a little bit of setup. The hardest part really is just finding the initial bee nests to grab your honey, and then finding enough of those so you can get enough of the materials you need to begin setting up your flower garden with your beehives. So there we go. That's the whole trick here behind using the bees and gathering the honey and the honeycomb, which is very important here for making those beehives. Okay, now that we have our beehives, we can begin to collect honey and we can begin to collect honeycomb, let's take a quick look at making the blocks. Let's just get back down on the ground here. There we go. And let's walk back over to the crafting table. There it is. And these are real easy. If you want to make a honeycomb block, it's just 4 honeycombs, and there's your honeycomb block. Now this really is just decorative. The honeycombs, as we've seen, we need those to make our beehives, but the blocks are just decorative, but they're pretty, they look nice. Now if you want to make the honey blocks, and those are more useful, it's going to take 4 bottles of honey. There we go, let's grab 4 of those. There's your 4 bottles. That makes 1 honey block. And as you saw, to get 1 bottle of honey, you click on 1 beehive or 1 bee nest. It's 1 charge. So it can take you a while to gather enough to really build a lot of stuff out of the honey blocks. When you're done with the honey blocks, you made your honey block over here. Notice you're left with empty bottles. You have to take those out like that. There you go. And then to make another honey block, you need to put in 4 more honey bottles for 1 more block. So it takes a while to do that. And then you need to take those out again. I'm just going to leave all those right there. So there you go. That is how you can finally get down to a honey block and a honeycomb block. Let's just put a honey block right there and our honeycomb block right there. Now if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and also to hit that share button, and don't forget to subscribe as well.